Two mighty military machines, separated by millennia, yet equally revered in history. On one side, the iron discipline and flawless organization of the ancient world. On the other, feudal honor, heavy armor, and the crusader's sword. This clash excites historians, strategists, and lovers of epic battles alike. What if the Roman legions, who conquered entire continents, faced off against the Templars or Teutons, who built their castles from stone and blood? Which of these two great military ideals would emerge victorious? Could a legionary, clad in laurica and armed with a pilum, stand up to a knight dressed in plate armor and wielding a two-handed sword? Or perhaps it was numerical superiority and tactical flexibility that made Rome's army unbeatable even in the face of the fiercest opponents. Let us find out. Chapter 2. Historical background. The Roman Empire reached its peak around the 2nd century AD. That was when its borders stretched from Britain to Mesopotamia. Legionaries of that time were professional soldiers who had undergone the harshest training. They built roads, fortified camps, and fought as a single unit. Medieval knights appeared much later, around the 10th century. Those were times filled with wars, crusades, and constant need to defend land. Orders like the Teutonic Order, the Knights Templar, or the Knights Hospitaller became the elite of the Christian world. Their main task was not only to fight, but also to fulfill religious vows. So what are we comparing? An organized war machine of Rome versus the fanatical, faithful, and well-trained elite of the Middle Ages. Chapter 3. Tactics and battle formation. The Roman legion operated like a well-oiled machine. Its basic tactical unit was the cohort, consisting of 600 men. Legionaries used a shield wall that could change formation under different battlefield conditions. They threw pila javelins, slashed with short swords, formed tortoises testudo, and advanced while maintaining tight formation. A medieval knight, on the other hand, was more of a shock force. He operated as part of heavy cavalry. On the battlefield, he could break through any infantry line, especially when charging at full gallop. However, his effectiveness depended on terrain, number of riders, and the quality of the enemy. If we imagine them on the same battlefield, say, an open plain suitable for both cavalry and infantry, the Romans would first try to occupy a favorable position, dig in, and build defensive structures. The knights might attempt a sudden attack to break the enemy formation. But here's the key point. The legion didn't just line up in a row. It knew how to adapt. If cavalry attacked, legionaries quickly formed a wedge or square, planted shields into the ground, and pointed spears upward. Chapter 4. Weapons and armor. A Roman legionary wore laurica segmentata, segmented metal-plated armor. His head was protected by a helmet, his body by chainmail or scale armor, and his legs by greaves. His shield was rectangular, massive, wooden, covered in leather and metal plating. He was armed with a pilum, a throwing spear that bent after impact so it couldn't be thrown back, and a gladius, a short, broadsword ideal for close stabbing attacks. The knight, meanwhile, wore much heavier armor, especially by the 13th century, when blacksmithing advances allowed for nearly fully enclosed suits of armor. His sword was longer, sometimes double-edged, and in some cases even two-handed. The horse was also armored, giving him an advantage in speed and mass. However, it is worth remembering, the heavier the armor, the slower and less maneuverable the rider, and if the Romans knew how to strike at horses, they could easily deprive the knight of his main advantage. Chapter 5. The answer: who would win? If we talk about a one-on-one duel, then the knight, especially in full armor, would have the advantage. His protection is better, his sword longer, and he is trained for individual combat. But if we talking about battle within an army, then the advantage clearly lies with the legion. The Roman legion was a system. It built fortifications in an hour, calculated routes, used engineering structures, had logistical support, and a command structure. Against such a machine, even the bravest cavalry could break like waves against a cliff. If the legion was prepared for attack, if it occupied a strong position, built palisades, and properly positioned its shields, even the most experienced knights wouldn't be able to break their formation. And if you add catapult fire, precise javelin throws, and the legionnaire's ability to work effectively in tight spaces, it becomes clear, in a large battle, the Romans would win. Conclusion: the knight is a hero, the legion is a state in armor. In a duel, The knight wins. In a large-scale war, Rome wins. Psychology of battle. Who was more disciplined? Warfare isn't just about swords and formations. A huge role is played by psychological resilience, the ability to act under pressure and maintain order in the chaos of battle. The Roman legionary was raised in the spirit of iron discipline. He was trained not only physically but morally. He knew that if he broke ranks, he would be executed. If he fled the battlefield, his century would be disbanded or deprived of pay. Such harsh methods created an army that could stand before horror and not flinch. A medieval knight, on the other hand, fought for honor, faith, and glory. His motivation was internal. He swore loyalty to his lord, took monastic vows, wore a cross as a symbol of the holiness of his mission. Yet he was less tied to centralized command. Each knight could act according to his own judgment. Thus, in conditions of organized battle where endurance and coordinated action are required, the advantage again lies with the Romans. The legion would hold its formation even under a hail of arrows. Meanwhile, knights might attempt to charge without orders, breaking tactical cohesion. Chapter 7. Logistics and supply. Another key element of war, the ability to supply the army with food, water, ammunition, and repair materials, was crucial to long campaigns. The Roman army was a master of logistics. Legionaries built their own roads, bridges, forts. They could march 30 kilometers a day carrying everything necessary. Each soldier carried tools, food supplies, a shield, sword, javelins, and a tent. The Roman army was autonomous and self-sufficient. Knightly orders were also well prepared, especially during crusades. However, their dependence on heavy wagons, slow supply trains, and the need for regular repairs of horses and armor made them less mobile. In addition, knights often relied on local populations for provisions, making them vulnerable to guerrilla attacks or food shortages. In other words, if these two armies entered a prolonged campaign, the Romans could win simply due to superior rear organization. Chapter 8. Influence of religion and ideology. Religion played an important role in both armies, though expressed differently. For the Romans, war was part of state policy. Yes, they sacrificed to the gods before battle, but their main driver was the expansion of the empire, defense of borders, and strengthening power. Their religion was more formal than emotional. For medieval knights, however, war was a holy mission, especially true for orders like the Templars or Teutons. They believed themselves chosen, defenders of the faith, ready to die for Christ. This belief gave them strength, but at the same time made them less flexible strategically. Romans, on the other hand, were more pragmatic. They could adopt enemy customs, use any tactics, as long as they won. This made them more versatile in battle. Chapter 9. Analysis of real battles. In metaphorical sense, although almost 1,000 years passed between these two armies, analogies can be drawn from real battles. For example, the Battle of Trebia showed how Romans could withstand heavy cavalry. Carthaginian Hannibal used elephants and cavalry, but the legion held firm and even inflicted serious damage. Similarly, in the Middle Ages, the Battle of Bouvines demonstrated the power of infantry against knightly cavalry. French infantry managed to withstand the charge thanks to dense formation and proper tactics. If we imagine Romans facing knights, their experience against Carthaginian riders and Germanic tribes would give them a huge advantage. They knew how to strike at legs, how to use shield wedges, how to flank cavalry. Moreover, Romans could use engineering works, palisades, ditches, spear barriers, to slow down and disrupt the impact of a knightly charge. Chapter 10. General conclusion. Who would win? If speaking of a one-on-one duel or small group of fighters, the advantage belongs to the knights. Their armor, personal training, and individual skill make them dangerous opponents. But if we rate talking about a real large-scale war where decisive factors include organization, numbers, logistics, strategy, and adaptability, then the Roman legion comes out on top. The legion is a miniature state. It knows how to build, manage, plan, and win. Even if a single knight manages to kill dozens of legionaries, the whole Roman army will surround him, cut off support, and destroy him. Ultimately, victory goes to those who best control space, time, and people, and in this sense, Rome remains unmatched.